Back at it again with the Ontario Rat Model 1 and AUS-8. So the Rat 1 is probably one of the most famous budget knives in the world, I would imagine. Very inexpensive. You can pick one up for about $30. And yeah, just a really great budget knife. And we're going to run this one through the performance test. I had a request for this steel a little while back, so I figured I would go ahead and do it, and decided to add in a little bit of the sharpening process just so everyone could see how I'm sharpening these edges. And I'll probably do this from now on. There you can see the edge, nice and clean and crisp bevel. Fully deburred on the strop. It's a 4-micron strop on basswood. Now you can sort of see the final finish of the edge. So it should be good to go for the test. Gonna check it up against a piece of receipt paper just so you guys can see the get a sense of the level of sharpness before we get started. And that little Sharpie mark on the edge is actually a very small chip that's still in the edge that I didn't see when I was sharpening it, so I just marked it to point it out to myself. That way I didn't count the little chip as damage during the test. So I switched over from 16 gauge stereo wire to 12 gauge, which is much more difficult to cut through and actually caused a little bit of damage at the apex, some light dulling and very, very minor microchipping. So we're batoning through the pieces now. And I think this 12 gauge wire is a better test that'll be helpful in showing a difference between steels more than the 16 gauge was capable of doing. So you can see that last little bit of blade there is already starting to struggle with the paper. And then getting into the zip ties, just chewing into it, nicking at it, putting some lateral pressure on the edge right there below the belly. And I put this cutting board there really just to save my mat that I use for my reviews, but I'm glad I did because I was able to put the zip tie through that hole to hold it in place, which really helped me out a lot. Didn't take very long at all with that. No damage from the zip ties, which is sort of to be expected, or at least that's the way I feel about it. And moving on to the piece of hardwood, digging into it, getting after it. You guys can hear this. It sounds pretty gnarly digging through this wood, and yeah, just cut straight through it. And I was really impressed with the knife at this point. Very comfortable in the hand, very strong feeling, and you can see a little bit of light deformation at the apex from the wood. But yeah, I was very impressed with the knife and the way it handled that hardwood. It just went right through it and was really comfortable in my hand when doing so and felt really solid. So now some hitting the edge up against the hardwood didn't cause any issues that I could see, at least. I don't think it damaged it at all. You can see it, that part's starting to catch a little bit through the paper. And then some spine wax to test out the lock. Held up to that beautifully as well. Then moving on to the aluminum block, digging into the corner of it, shaving off some material. Check the edge. You guys can see some aluminum embedded into it and some light deformation. And I can't even get it to cut through the paper. I'm going to stab the tip into it 5 times, no issues. Handled that test pretty well. And then moving on to the copper block, same thing, chew into the corner. And this actually caused some more light deformation. Which I was surprised by. And it's starting to struggle pretty good through the paper now. Then stabbing the tip into the copper block. You can see it broke the tip on the 3rd try. That's why I'm not sure if this is a good test or not. I may just end up not doing this anymore. I'm going to try it a couple more times just to see how some other blades hold up to it. But if I can't get a knife to pass that test, then I feel like it's sort of a useless test. Now you can see that big dent or deformation from hitting the edge against the corner of the copper block. And the edge is really struggling now. And then hitting it up against the flat side of the block. Looks like it caused another good section of damage. Then moving on to the putty can. Stabbing it into there. Tip was already busted. Didn't cause any major problems. Just kind of finished killing out the edge up there at the end of the blade. And then prying open the putty can. Handled this very well. Didn't cause any damage, no chips, no issues that I could see. And this is a new test I've added. Hitting the edge up against the edge of the can. I feel like this material is pretty hard on the can and can show us some difference in strength and impact toughness, or a combination of the two. You can see it tore up that edge pretty good where I hit it. And then this is also another new test, scraping the edge across the copper block like that on the corner. Just kind of folded over the apex, created a pretty large burr there. And you can see the edge is pretty much dead. And then the last test is the same thing with the aluminum block, just scraping across, and it also created a burr, just not quite as bad as the copper block. So that's the end of the test, guys. Let me know what y'all think. Interested to hear your thoughts on the test. I think that I'm going to keep it like this from now on. I think this is a good definitive list of tasks that can really kind of show us what we want to see. How good the strength at the edge is, and a combination of impact toughness, as well as, you know, what steels can hold up to cutting things like wire and zip ties and wood as well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the test. And here's a little short video of the edge itself after the test was complete. You guys can see all the damage it took. So AUS-8, or at least this blade, I just feel like it's kind of soft, you know. I think it's probably sitting around that 55 HRC mark, and it's just not capable of handling any really cutting through any hard material like that without taking some significant damage, or at least that's what it looks like. As far as my thoughts on this model, I think it's a pretty phenomenal knife. The action is on par with some very expensive knives. I mean, flicking the blade out, once you get used to how it works, it's, I mean, almost second to none for a liner lock. And the lockup is super solid. It held up really well in these tests, and it was very, very comfortable in the hand during use. I like the large size of it and how capable it is. It's just a really good budget knife. It's not perfect, obviously, but really an excellent knife. And hopefully in the near future I can try out their D2 to compare to this to see which one is really the better option for a working knife. But yeah, I really like this knife overall, even though the steel does leave much to be desired. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed and found it useful, and we'll see you next time.